Hi, Zizaran here with another harvest video. This is going to be another craft the build. It's a new series I've started up to accompany build guides. I just pushed out a Blade Blast Chieftain Fire Blade Blast guide. And this is going to be the craft the build for that. So the point of this series is I'm going to look over every gear piece and talk about how I made it and how to make them basically. So let's start with the weapon. It's a Warlord Scepter. Ideally, you want one with 40% elemental damage. You want at least item level 78, because then you'd get lower tiers. And you will probably get those and have to reroll them, but I'll walk you through that now. So to start with the Scepter, I actually used alterations. Old currency, I know, outdated. But you could just spam with the increased fire damage. Then it's going to depend a little bit about what mods you have. You want the fire damage to be the only prefix, or at least that you can remove the other ones. It's pretty easy to remove the other ones with remove attack mods might be good. Now your suffixes, ideally you want that to be 2 whatever and then an open suffix. That's what I had basically. Then next I rerolled and I had physical damage leached as mana, which I just did remove phys mod. And then the next step was that I augmented a resist. A resist is actually a pretty good idea. Augment cold or lightning, whatever you have the most of, so you can remove it later, right? And then it doesn't matter if you get cold damage or lightning damage, but it's important that it's something you can very easily remove afterwards. Or you could use 2 exalts. This is what I ended up doing. You can use 2 exalts afterwards and do prefixes cannot be changed, and then use the scouring. That'll remove the prefixes cannot be changed as well as all the suffixes. But that's not the first next step. So for the first step now, and I know this can get pretty complicated, but I want to make sure that I explain everything. So the way that your scepter should look now, before we proceed, you should have fire damage as your only one, and then 2 suffixes, right? So you've removed whatever the other prefixes are, except for fire damage, and then you have maybe chaos rest and lightning rest, right? Or cold damage, right? As your other suffix. Then what we do is we do cannot roll attack mods, which is 1 exalted orb. I'm going to show you why. Now, if we toggle let's toggle a serrated, because that'll show us the attack modifiers. These are the things that we can't roll now. TLDR, the only phys mods that are left is the phys damage is extra fire and +1 phys skill gems. So once you have cannot roll attack mods and then do augment physical, and this is a suffix itself, so your suffixes are full. So you can't accidentally aug a suffix, right? Because you've already plugged that up. So the first one, it's most likely going to be phys damage does extra fire, probably on a low roll. That's the most likely scenario. You could hit plus all phys skill gems on the first one, but it's so much lower weighting. So what happened to me is that I got like the 8% or 12% phys is extra fire, and then I needed to do, I did the remove phys, aug phys. Those. I spammed those until I got the tier 1 phys damage is extra fire, and then I just augment physical again, and I'm guaranteed to get the phys spell skill gems. Now your prefixes done, right? Sorted. For the suffixes, I crafted spell crit and then augmented a caster mod. There's like no other caster mods that you can hit. There are no warlord caster mods, and it's just cast speed. That's the only caster mod. Now, for this, it's a bit of a gamble. You could just do multi-mod and then either do Arcane Surge and cast speed or pure cast speed and then the trigger socketed spell gems. But yeah, I augmented caster mods and I got lucky. I hit tier 1. That being said, having both is actually not bad for this build. The reason for that is because we don't have that much crit. And obviously we're not a crit build. However, we are using elemental overload, and since we're using controlled destruction, without my boots, I have 1.2 crit, and then you have inspiration, pops that up to 3.6. I have a cinder swallow with crit as well, pops it up to 8, and then it's on 15 or something with the boot enchant. I am gonna replace it with a mana regen boot enchant, but yeah. And then I just did augment chaos. The chaos is obviously super easy. You can just do remove and aug until you get tier 1 chaos rest. That's just to make it easier with like the divine flesh gearing. So that's the scepter, and I also do have the quality do not increase phys damage. It's 1% ink AoE instead. That's obviously better because we're not actually attacking or slapping anybody with this weapon. Gloves. I don't really have any gloves yet. I just spammed chaos on these and hit a life roll. That's it. No no creativity here. Basically, you want these. You want Topo Tantes. Well, actually, I don't know if that's what it's called, but it's the 25% fist damage converted to fire. Then you want a Crusader Exalted Orb, which is very expensive. So they're super in-game gloves, and it's basically to save myself 2 skill points, and then I'm not Avatar Fire anymore, so I can use Aziri's Promise, which is pretty big for this build because we are physical, so that means we're sort of getting double dipping from the Phys extra and the Elemental is extra, but we can't use an Aziri's Promise while we are Avatar Fire. So that's why we actually do care enough to try to get one. You cannot roll attack mods, and obviously you want to block the suffixes first, so by that I mean fill it up with resists, either something you want to remove, and getting crit wouldn't be bad either. As you see, the build is a bit low on crit for keeping the Elemental Overload up. But fill up your suffixes, then do cannot roll attack mods, and then if you augment fire, then it's going to give you the fist damage converted to fire. Even though it is going to be a fire mod, the conversion, you should be safe to do remove fire, add fire, as long as you still have the cannot roll attack mods on. Because it can't, since there are no more mods left, like there's no more fire mods left, it shouldn't be able to remove the conversion because it can't remove it and add something else. So it should just give you an error until it hits the correct one if you get a low tier. So the gloves, very expensive as well. Something I don't even have myself, and I definitely do want, because being able to use an Aziri's Promise would be pretty sick. Let's look at the ring. These are also incredibly easy to make. So next up is the ring. I chose to do Vermilion rings. You could do Opal rings for even more damage, and instead of life, you could then do the elemental damage, which, as you see on my other ring, is actually going to affect the Hysteria roll. Don't think I have a Hysteria to show you, but it's one of these essences. I only have a Delirium left. They're very easy to make by doing change essence to another essence, so I can make this Delirium into Hysteria easily. But yeah, so for this, I have a Warlord Vermilion ring. It needs to be... Is it 80 for the highest level flammability? Which I didn't even get. I only got tier 2. But I think it's item level 80 for level 8. As soon as you have the Warlord Vermilion ring or Opal ring or whatever you want, then I just used the Hysteria essence on it. And now, I filled up my prefixes. So I got a mediocre life roll that I need to reroll. And then I crafted just anything. It doesn't matter. Just put like cold damage to attacks on it, right? So then you have fizz damage as extra fire. You have a life roll and cold damage. And it's fairly easy to clean up the items now, right? With remove attack modifier. Probably the worst thing you can get would be mana. You're actually guaranteed to not lose a single Hysteria here. What you can do, you have so much power with remove non-fire and add as fire. Or remove non-fist. This is even easier. Remove non-fist and add as fist. And then, if you craft resist, there's only 2 suffixes. Well, there are only 3 fire suffixes, right? So, technically, if you do this enough, you're going to get all of them. I kept a temporary one there that was easy to remove, right? So I kept, let's say, cold damage to attacks, right? Any attack modifier is very easy to remove from this. I kept that while then doing the suffixes. So this then looked like fist damage is extra fire, any life roll, cold damage to attacks, and then no suffixes. Then what I do is I craft fire resist, and then I augment it. When I hit low fire damage, I actually got tier 1 on the first track because I'm just lucky. But if I got low fire damage, I would do prefixes cannot be changed, and then do remove fire, add fire. That's very expensive, so just going with a low roll is perfectly acceptable too, because these rings aren't actually that expensive, even though they're quite nice. But once you start doing like prefixes cannot be changed, I know that for people playing Trade League, 2x is a big investment for a ring, right? So maybe you just get a low roll and you just go with it. It's whatever. Then the next augment fire you do is going to be guaranteed flammability, right? Because you already have fire resist blocked, and then you have flammability, and you have fire damage. So that's the only 3 fire mods. Move on to the belt. I think I just spammed life modifiers here. Yeah, I did life modifiers until I got life recovery rate. So this is a Warlord's Digivice, which obviously you need to either use the Harvest to make influence on jewelry, or you can use a Warlord Exalted Orb. I spammed life until I had the life recovery rate and a life roll. Then next up, I spammed Augment Fire. Then I needed Lightning Rest, so I added that, and then I have an open Dex and Int because we're pretty low on stats on this build. So that's pretty much how I crafted that. I found it was pretty easy to get. It 20 chaos spam maybe to hit tier 1 life recovery and tier 3 life. As for my chest, there are like cheaper or more expensive versions that you can make with this. Obviously, just an explosion. I'll show my old chest as well, because these are very cheap to make now. Obviously, sixing is still a pain. But this was what I used before this, and these are extremely easy to make now. And I've gone over them a few times before, but I want to do it again. So first off, you need an item level 85 Crusader chest, right? When you have that, you spam either Jagged Fossils or the reroll with Physical until you hit both physical damage taken as lightning and Reflect, right? What's the third mod? Explosion. There are only 3 phys prefixes. There is one suffix as well. It's like phys damage reduction, I think. But as long as you have an open prefix, Reflect, and the phys damage taken as lightning, the next time you augment a prefix, it is guaranteed to be the explosion. Now, what I did on this test then was I did remove. I just did the remove physical mod, or you can use an annulment. Remove physical mod until the reflect was gone. If anything else disappeared, then you have to augment the fist back on. So you ideally don't want to lose lightning first, because that makes it harder. Then you have to use more augment physicals basically. If you remove the explosion again, then obviously you just augment it straight back on. But once you've gotten rid of the reflect, then you can do remove lightning mod, and now you have a chest with just the explosion as the only prefix. Then you can do what I did, which is augment life and then remove life, add life until you have at least tier 3 life, I would say. Suffixes are pretty easy, right? I didn't bother cleaning them or wiping them, so I just have the strength here, and I have an open suffix that I can do whatever with. You know, I can get power charges if I want to by augmenting crit. But I've just left it for now. You could also do chaos rest very easily. And then I have crafted percentage life. The current chest, it's not necessarily best in slot. There's something else you can do instead. You could have the fist damage taken as fire damage instead of the life, or instead of the active skill gems. Nugian went for that. That is a lot more fist mitigation. I went for damage because I feel like I'm pretty tanky already. That might bite me in the ass, but hey, we have pretty good fist mitigation with all the endurance charges and immortal call. But basically for this, you need a warlord chest and a crusader and an awaken orb. So these are very expensive. It's actually easier than the other one. I rolled the explosion, but this time I just removed the lightning because that's the only other influence mod. And awaken orbs, you need to make sure that you have no other influence mods. So for the warlord chest, we had to get a little bit more advanced. Steel Mage actually found this because we were just chatting, and I was like sitting there thinking if there's a good way to hit the +1 gems to before, like, to just awaken orbit. And he was like, I'm pretty sure that works with fossils pretty well. And he was right, as he often is. So if you see here, this is what I used actually. Dense, metallic, and pristine. It's 6 tries on average. This is guaranteed, but it's I wouldn't bother. It's so cheap, right? It's dense, metallic, and pristine. And I think it's as long as it rolls 2 prefixes or 1 prefix, it has to hit it. But either way, dense, metallic, and pristine was very, very easy for me. I did it in 1 try, and I hit the +1 active skill gems. And then, again, you want to make sure that none of the chests involved have a second influence, because then the awaken orb doesn't work. So you can't have like, the explosion and the power charge on crit, or the active skill gems and fist damage taken as fire, right? So make sure you don't have that. Then you awaken orb, and the first thing you click is the thing that you don't want to keep. The thing you keep is going to be the thing you click last for the awaken orb. Now, awaken orbs are very expensive, but I'm trying to like talk a little bit more about more advanced crafts, because a lot of people are now getting more access to stuff like that because of harvest. After that, I got very lucky. I didn't get a prefix. It's very luck based. If you get mana, that's pretty sad times. There's no amazing way that you can really get rid of that. But that's the chest. And then I also have the +1 life per 2 quality. So I'm getting 11 flat life from this. Helmet. There's a lot of advanced gear in this build, as you can tell. Helmet. This was pretty cool. So I randomly got the Blade Blast enchant on an Elder helmet. This doesn't need to be 86. what I did was I hit a loathing essence, and I didn't hit conk effect. I had the chaos rest, I think, and I had random ass prefixes. Then I did a couple of times of trying reroll the item, keep suffixes, and on one of them it hit pretty high life roll. I think it hit tier 1 life. I think this is the life roll I hit. So I basically had the mana reserved, the chaos rest, and the life roll. Then I blocked the suffixes, so I basically crafted, you know, fire rest or whatever, right? I actually didn't craft resist. I crafted cannot roll caster mods because that takes out these, and then the only things that you can hit with your augment, you can hit the minion damage, you can hit the max life, you can hit less duration. You can actually hit the mana, and you have like 800 times 3 chance to hit any of the conquer effects. Pretty rough. Not great to get it. This is probably the hardest piece and the most like RNG to get. Your best bet, honestly, on average, is probably doing the suffixes cannot be changed, and it'll re-roll the prefixes until you hit conk. It's not the hardest waiting. Like, it's not crazy hard to wait, but it is still a bitch. It is honestly really hard. I got insanely lucky to hit it on my first try on this one. I did have a few more loathings that I spammed into it before, but with the augment influence, it was the first thing I hit. So yeah, it's a bit disgusting. It's a nice helmet though. The most reliable way to hit it is suffixes cannot be changed on the harvest thing. I'll show you what it looks like. There, keeping all suffixes. Reforge a rare item, keeping all suffixes. And that you can do infinitely. And you will probably hit conk within 5. It's not too rare. Amulet, actually very easy to make. Very happy about this. So for this, the hardest part was getting the Purity of Fire, reduced reservation. I used alterations until I found that. Now, Purity of Fire is a mana and aura, so it's not fire. It can't be added by fire or like removed accidentally that way, which is actually kind of nice for some things. But either way, once I had just Purity of Fire and cleaned up the rest of the amulet, I did. But if we go down to Warlord, you can see that it only has 1 physical suffix, and that's that. I'm pretty sure I did cannot roll attack mods. And then augment physical twice. I'm pretty sure there's only 2 phys mods. Yeah, you have the phys extra fire, and then you have the phys skill gems. So getting that is pretty easy with cannot roll attack mods. It removes, well, all the phys ones. So very, very easy to get that part. There are 2 good mods, both which are around the same. You have the 10% penetration or the 15% phys extra fire. In different scenarios, like I think it's with this online. No wait, this one? Yeah, with Namahu's Flame online, the 100% phys extra fire and against the boss, then the penetration is slightly more damage. However, it was so low that I didn't care which one I got. Either one is fine. It's not something I was going to re-roll it for. And then for the life, after that, I just did aug life and remove life, add life, while keeping the suffixes full so I can't accidentally get a life regen. And that was pretty easy. The ring, this was pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with how this worked out. You don't necessarily, I wouldn't do this on softcore. That's important to mention. I'll talk about 2 different rings now, because I wouldn't do this part on softcore. On softcore, I would probably just make a random like opal ring with, actually, or another unset ring. But either an opal or an unset with hysteria, and that's it. Because then I could have life, hysteria, and the -10 mana cost. The reason for that is that I'm struggling a bit on mana right now. However, on hardcore, I'm doing this because it's giving me 1 more fire rest. Again, making the
I cannot do this yet.
righteous fire do even less damage. So I feel like it's worth it for hardcore. And the step for making this is I rolled until I got +2 or +3 socketed gems on a ring. Then we used a super regal. What's a super regal? Well, I'll show you. There, the top one there. Upgrade a magic item to a rare item, adding 4 modifiers. So that's that's then going to guarantee that you can use the fracture. So then you can do this. So fracture a random prefix on an item with at least 3 prefixes, and then you do that until you have either the +2 or the +3. Once it's fractured, it cannot be divided, it cannot be rerolled. So that means that when we use a hysteria on it, it's going to guarantee that the +gem levels stays on, and then you get the Hysteria roll. And then you just finish up the amulet with, like, you know, augment fire, remove fire, augment life, life to life, life, until you get the good rolls. Boots. These I rolled until I had 35% movement speed. Then I augmented them, then literally did augment life twice. And I spammed remove life, add life until the main life roll was an actual high one. And the resists, I think I cleaned up the suffixes and then just did augment fire, augment lightning, and crafted the cold and chaos. Boots are extremely easy to make this thing. Hardest part here was finding item level 86 two-tone boots. But yeah, they're obviously not like perfect. I could make tier 1 fire rest and lightning rest if I want to. But right now my resistances are balanced for Wise Oak, so I don't really want to fuck with anything. Now let's talk about the shield. I accidentally made this. I was actually hoping to get something else, and the only reason I kept it is because I realized this is item level 84. I actually need item level 85 Shaper Shield. The reason for that is my preferred mod, and I think I would ideally want a Spear Shield, like a full energy shield one. The reason for that is that the full energy shield ones, it can roll the soft roll, which is 109 fire damage. Now this does only have a weighting of 12, so it's almost impossible to get that higher roll. But yeah, the only thing that's wrong with this shield is I would want the increased fire damage instead of spell, and I would want +2 to max all rest. That would put my chaos rest at 90, my fire rest is 83, then 77, 77. That would be insane. That's pretty much the only thing from this. The way I made this, I spammed recraft with life until I hit the life roll, and I had the life on block, which the life on block isn't the end of the world. There's not too many life rolls. I think there's 3. There's only 2, so you would basically end up with regen life per second, so you can force that. So the most important thing to get is the socketed gems of 15% reduced reservation. Then you can aug life twice on the suffix, and it will do recover life when you block. I actually got very lucky, and I had the life on block, and the reservation, and then finished from there. So for the prefix, that's extremely easy. You're going to get a high spell damage mod, right? I did remove caster, add caster until it was high enough tier, and then I had tier 1 on my last try. So that's fine. It's the only caster mod. Actually, that is a big benefit, which is worth mentioning. That is a big benefit to Armor ES one. On the other ones, there are more caster mods, I think. Yeah, because you can hit plus stem levels on the other ones, but you can't on this. So it's technically easier to roll these, but like the man, it would be such a pain to roll the end shield. It would be so worth it if I hit it. Because if yeah, it's just getting 90 chaos rest is huge with the divine flesh of the build. For the last prefix, the max cold rest, I did aug influence modifier, and I was hoping to hit +1 all max rest, but yeah, I hit the cold. Sad face. And there's nothing I can really do to block that. That pretty much sums up all of that. It's probably the most advanced I craft the build so far. Honestly, it's been a really fun experience crafting and perfecting the gear. Hope you guys are enjoying the craft the builds. They're a little bit hectic and I find them a bit hard to explain, but hopefully there's not too many question marks and hopefully people do understand a lot of it. And I hope you guys are enjoying this build series. Thanks for watching. Hope you're enjoying Harvest and try to die less than I do.